In just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Susan Crandall, and we're going to be talking about her brand new book called The Myth of Perpetual Summer. And if you've never read one of her books, you need to read this book. This is the first one of hers that I've read, and I can't wait to talk to her about it. It's set in Mississippi back in the late 50s, early 60s, into the 70s. It was really good. So, everyone, here is Susan. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Susan Crandall. And I hope I said that right because I forgot to ask you.
That is correct.
Okay, good. And we're talking about her brand new book out this week called The Myth of Perpetual Summer. And she has a copy of it, which I can't wait to see the cover because I have it on my Kindle and she's going to hold it up for us so we can all see it. Oh, I love that cover, Susan. It's so, I love when I first see the covers because sometimes when I get them off Neck Alley, I don't get to see them. And, so I love being able to see the cover. But what an amazing book. This is the first one I've read of yours. This is your third book, I think.
It's actually my 12th.
Whoa. Why did I only get, wow.
Well, 9 of them are at this point out of print except as ebooks. So that's probably why. They're probably not popping up like they used to. The first 9 were more definitely women's fiction, family, romance, a place in the town type centered. So once I did Whistling Past the Graveyard, that kind of broke me out into more mainstream literary fiction.
I loved this book so much. I was so attached to Lula, the main character. Oh. I'm acting like I'm holding the book because sometimes I just hold the book because when I fall in love with it. But what a great story. I switch my books up because I have so many of these interviews. I'll go back and forth. But when I got to your book, I just read it. I read it straight through. I loved it so much. And I see all of the press that's coming through on it. I mean, you're getting such great reviews already. The book's just coming out. You must be thrilled.
I am more than thrilled. The reviews, not only the professional reviews, but reader reviews like on Goodreads have been very good. And, that's my measuring stick for success of a book is, how the readers are feeling about it. Professional reviews are fabulous and certainly help, but when you get a reader review where, your story just touched someone deep inside, that's awesome. That's where it's at for me.
Well, I'm going to let you tell everybody what it's about in a nutshell, and then I'm going to ask my questions because I don't want to give away too much, and I'm always afraid I'm going to give away too much.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a terrible nutshell person, so stop me if I start to ramble into too much detail. But this is the story of Tallulah James, and it takes place between 1958 and 1974. 2 settings. Southern California is in the later years, and Mississippi is in her childhood years. And what started this book was my question of, how would a dysfunctional family childhood affect different siblings differently? And so, from there, Tallulah got her amazingly dysfunctional, loving family, and it's her coming of age story, and it's also a coming home story, and it deals with all kinds of really deep things that have to do with us and how we fit into our families. Her father has a manic depressive disorder, which in the early 60s there wasn't a lot of treatment, and it wasn't diagnosed like it is now. So, but it was also ignored because of the culture that they were living in. So, this is her story, her relationship with her siblings, and, she is the vanguard of their family. She is the one who's trying to protect and restore a bit of this declining family image that they have. And, she has a lot of lessons to learn along the way.
I love family, like saga books, but I thought the way you told it was so beautiful. The way, because I fell in love with the adult her, and then I fell in love with the child her, in a different way, and I loved that.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. That was a little tricky. Whistling Past the Graveyard is a book that I wrote that really was a breakout book for me, and it was totally a 9-year-old girl's point of view.
Mm.
And so this dealing with the adolescent and grade school point of view and carrying over the personality but changing the perspective as she became an adult was a new experience for me, which is why I like writing. There's always something new to learn, a new way to approach something. So it was a lot of fun for me, and it's nice to hear that it worked because you never know.
That's right. Well, you bring in her grandmother, who's a huge part of her life. And I had my dad's grandmother lived with us. So I found she died in 2000, but I felt like when I was reading this, and I hope other readers feel the same way, I had so many flooding of memories, because she's flawed, but then she's her grandmother, and I love that part of the story.
Yeah, she needed some stability, and that's what her grandmother was. And for her to eventually come around to realize that, first of all, her grandmother was a person in her own right, which is always, I think, a shock for us when we find out our parents weren't just our parents and our grandparents were just our grandparents. And, that she had hard choices that she made too. And to get past the judgment. So it was a fun aspect of that story for me to write, and a little heartbreaking at times.
Right.
So, and I have a particular attachment to grandmothers because I never had one. I had a couple of great grandmothers, but both of my parents' mothers died when my parents were in grade school. So grandmothers are kind of fascinating to me. So, and that particular relationship between a young girl and her grandmother. So I lived vicariously a little bit through Tallulah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm a grandmother now, but my connection is not the same. It's different. It's a different world now. And my grandmother was a part of my everyday life. And pretty much till she died. And, I don't know. I keep trying to, it's a give and take. And I try to pull my grandchildren in. And then I'm like, but it isn't like that. But that's why this really related to me, because that's how I grew up with my grandmother.
Yes, yes, and it's a very special relationship, and I'm a grandmother myself
Are you?
also, and of course I didn't have a grandmother relationship to compare it to and to
Right.
base it on, but it is a unique relationship,
It is.
and until you get grandchildren, you just don't know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but it's great.
It is. It is. And my grandmothers both taught me. My one I lived with, the other one lived in Florida. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I'd see her a couple times a year, but they both taught me how to crochet. And I still crochet every day. And I keep looking, I have 5 granddaughters, and I'm like, who can I pass this on to? Because my daughters didn't care. They didn't want to know.
Of course, and one of the granddaughters will. You'll find one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and it is. And as you crochet, I'm sure you think of your grandmother
All the
every
time.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I loved about this relationship. And I have a quote. First of all, everybody, this book is full of quotes, okay? I started to keep track of them, and I was like, I can't keep track of them. They're all over the place. And when I'm on my Kindle, I have to actually write them down. So I had to I was like, okay, fine, it's all quotable. But I loved the grandma quote, okay? And this kind of summed it, I don't know. Let me read it first, and then we'll talk about it. And you can
Okay.
tell me. The grandma says to her, and this is fairly early in the book, so it's not a giveaway. It's not that we give up on our dreams. Reality sometimes changes them for us. You'll see. And she's having this very in depth conversation with her grandmother about the family and about her dad, who she always is curious about it, but more than just her dad or uncles and extended family. And I used to do that. It's like you're asking your grandmother like questions, like what is going on, what is what is up with these crazy people? No, she wasn't saying that, but in a weird way, that's what we're thinking, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and we're trying to understand a world that is not within our grasp to truly understand because of our age.
Right.
And so we do ask a lot of questions. And sometimes, like that quote, quite often the answer when we receive it goes right over our heads.
Right.
But it'll come back around, and you'll remember, at the right time in your life, that voice comes forward in your head, and it's like, oh, now I get it.
Yes. Yeah, and it was kind of like she was being kind of depressed. It wasn't like the most cheerful news ever, She was trying to, but I feel like she was trying to brace her in a way. You try to set, she saw her, and I think she was just trying to say, like, just wait, you'll see. And I don't know. I wrote it down because I loved it. At the moment that I read it, I was like, it just hit me really hard, and I love that. So.
It is. And, that is a big part of what her grandmother tried to do was, not defeat her spirit, but try to prepare her in some ways for reality. And I think, that's a big job of the generation for us.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes when my grandmother moved out of our house, she lived very close though. And when I'd get in a fight with my parents, I'd go to her and I'd say, and they did this and they did this. And she'd say, oh yeah, they're mean. And I'd be like, right, so I'm staying. And she was like, no, you got to go home. And I was like, what? She'd always agree with me, but then she'd send me home. So whatever. Yeah. Okay, so this book is coming out this week. We are posting it this week. I'm so excited for you. But I always know that when you guys are doing this, like you're doing all the press for this week, but I know you've got something working on. So I want to hear about what you're working on right now.
Oh, like next?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've started working on a book that is about 5 friends that their lives only intersect at a summer resort, and one or two of the characters will be Southern, but the resort is in Michigan. And so we'll find out all of their family stories through their interaction together over this period of time. And then once they reach about 16, there's an event that happens that it drives them all apart, but they all carry away a pretty huge burden of guilt afterward. And then they'll be reunited after the death of one of their group. And, this takes place 50s and 60s. And in 1968, one of their group is killed in Vietnam. So that's what brings them back together. And when they come back together, that's when they piece together the full story of what happened. And the fact that it drove them apart really kept them from understanding initially what it was. So I have 2 whole chapters. So the story may morph into a lot of different things between now and then because I'm not a big planner. I just, I strap in for the ride once I start. And so I'm hoping it's been really fun to write so far, but I love writing adolescents and pre-adolescents anyway. It's just a real treat because they're nothing but this big ball of emotions. And so that's always fun. And so, I'll see. I also have another story that is more based on a true story that I'm still doing research on. And the sisters I'm interviewing are all in their 90s. So I'm going to have to get my interviews finished and then figure out if this is going to be a story that I'm going to be able to put together. But it was, their journey in Europe during World War II. And then they all migrated here during the Cold War. And so everything that they had done was very covered up and kept in a closet. Even their children didn't know their true past. So that one's fascinated me. And, if it's not next, it'll be after the next one.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't you are an amazing storyteller, and to keep coming up with the I mean both those books sound amazing already. Like I already want them.
Yeah.
So
And,
so when
well,
that
and
next go ahead.
you just never know what's going to,
Hit you.
the ideas are plenty, and all you have to do is look around,
Right.
and keep your eyes and ears open. And I think that's part of being a really good writer is being a really good observer. Back when I was a kid and all the cousins were out, at the family reunion, all the cousins were out playing together. I sat around and listened to the old people tell their stories and just soaked it up like a sponge. So, I wasn't a writer as a child, but I was a big observer, I guess. So
Right.
um, there's plenty of stories. It's just a matter of is there enough to create a full novel, a full story that's going to be fulfilling to your readers, and deals with pacing and all those other crafty things that you have to deal with.
Oh well, I can't. You know where to find me when that comes out. So
Yeah.
I love
Okay. I would.
I love your book. So show everybody the cover one more time before we go, because I love to show off the cover. Love, love, love it.
I love this cover, and it just it captures the feeling of the
It
book.
really
So,
does.
which doesn't always happen with a cover. And covers, most of the time, I see them; they're pretty well done. And fortunately, the first two covers that they sent were not appropriate for this story. They were attractive covers, but just really didn't connect to the story. So, thank my agent, she kept going back and saying, I don't think this is quite it. Let's go back to the drawing board.
Hmm.
And when this one came through, it was like, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So I'm very pleased with it.
Oh, I
And,
love it.
uh, you know, I hate to say not to judge a book by its cover, but I've had covers that I have not agreed with and have not been able to do anything with. So I appreciate people that at least open those covers they're not thrilled with and read the first couple pages just to see if it
Yes.
matches up.
Yes, absolutely. And we hate to say that, but we are cover. I mean, readers are cover
Oh,
people.
yes.
We just are. That's
Right.
the favorite part of the book is the cover, and I always keep looking. When I have a book, I'll just keep looking at it and looking at it, and I love that cover. So I am so happy for you, Susan. I will have all of Susan's links listed below, along with the Amazon link that you can press the button and go right to the book, and you can order it. And thank you so much. I'm so happy that I got to read your book. I'm thrilled, and it meant the world to me. So
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for the opportunity to chat with you. And we'll chat again next
definitely.
next time around.
Yes, definitely. Have a great day, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Thank you for watching my interview with Susan. I know we had some Skype issues, but her and I tried in the beginning to get it perfect. But I'm pleased. I think that, her voice was good, and as it went on, it got better. So I'm really happy I stuck with it. And guys, go get this book. Okay. All the links will be listed below here. And she is an amazing storyteller. You are going to love this story. Thank you, everybody, for watching.